My biggest takeaway podcast.
Welcome back to My Biggest Takeaway podcast. I have Mark Joe on here, who is actually a pretty funny story and how we've come to get to know each other. But man owns a coffee shop, Omen Coffee, in downtown St. Louis, which obviously you guys know I have a love for. So I'm looking forward to diving into that in your story, man, because he has an interesting one, that is for sure. Mark, welcome to the show, bro.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't. I sometimes I forget that you used to own a coffee company. It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's when Paulo was like he's opening a coffee shop, I was like, man, I always wanted to open one up. But
Yeah,
it's completely different than ecom and takes so many more out. Like it's its own business. Like it's not an extension of a brand. Like it's its own entity. Like it's its own business. I just didn't
yeah,
have the bandwidth. And the truth is, dude, I've never worked a retail job in my life.
yeah,
So like to think
yeah,
I want to serve customers and run a POS system and do all this, and I got to figure out how to make, espresso. Um,
yeah.
it's a whole nother world for me. So I'm just a
It's
guy that enjoys a nice cup of Joe trying to market. Like it's
yeah.
a little bit different story.
It it's funny that you say that because in today's world, I feel like the internet like leads people to believe that like building any business is the same as building an online business. Like I could sell coffee online, so I must be able to open a coffee shop. Like it's absolutely 100%. It couldn't be further from the truth. Thinking that
Yeah,
those two things are somehow the same. Yeah,
I mean, 'cause you worked obviously at a big reputable e-commerce brand, and then now
hmm
you're going to retail shop.
yeah, man. I should have stayed. No, I'm just kidding.
We're talking two completely different worlds.
Yeah.
Which one do you think is harder? Starting an online
Um.
brand or starting an
Uh,
in-person brand?
Honestly, dude, and I hate to say that like one's easier, one's harder, because just as well as
Sure,
I do that
but
building any business is hard, and winning at any business is hard.
yeah,
Um, However, I definitely think, without a doubt, that building a brick and mortar retail operation is way harder, way harder. Just because of the amount. I mean, they both require everything, like everything. You know that. And I used to work 60, 80, 100 hours a week. No exaggeration.
sure.
Just with the online stuff. And so that's I only say that to emphasize that that's hard work too.
Mhm.
But like this, it's totally different. Like they're just for. I mean, I can't tell you how many times over the past year I've been, here at 10, 11 o'clock at night, sweeping, mopping, whatever, changing the air filters on the HVAC system, yeah, whatever, you name it. Okay.
Totally.
And it's not that that stuff is hard. What's actually hard about it, um, is maintaining the same standard, in the same level of detail, attention to detail, and the same, doing it the same way, 6 months in and 9 months in and a year in, and as you did the first week when you were excited, and that's the hard, customer standing here for 14 hours, and then that customer that comes in at 5:58 p.m. after I got here at 5, and it's 5 a.m. and it's 5:58 p.m. I'm just ready to close. We close at 6 and they come in, and you just got to put that smile on, and you got to bring the energy and treat them like they were your first customer of the day. That's different than the online stuff. The online stuff, it just, you can control when you're going to be on camera, or
Mm.
when you could plan around it. You know what I mean? My Zoom calls, my meetings, my all that stuff. When I'm shooting content, I could do that when I'm in a good mood. These people are going to walk in, and it doesn't matter how I feel right now.
Right.
So it's just different. It is harder. I hate to say that it's harder. It is harder though. That's just the reality.
Yeah, there's not. You can't hide behind a screen. You can't shut it off. You're always
No.
client facing.
Yep.
Um, The door's got to open up. Somebody's got to open it.
It's got to
Right.
open. Yeah.
You
And
know,
then it's just so like, the thing about not letting the standards slip. That's something that I don't think a lot of people think of. But like, every chair in here is pushed in all the time. Like I don't know. Like I feel like that would be so easy for me to stop paying attention to those things.
totally.
And so I just doubled down on them, and like the being here at 11 o'clock at night and mopping. Like nobody would know probably if I didn't
Sure.
mop out here. Like they would come in the next morning and be like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. It's concrete floor. You're not gonna notice if I mopped it or not." But I know, you know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, totally. Now, is this your first in-person business?
No, I had a small personal training gym.
Okay.
It was about 3,000 square feet.
How long did you do that?
For only a year. Only a year, and then I walked away from that to pursue a career in the e-commerce business that you were talking about. But yeah, that was fun, man. That was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot that I apply here in that first year. The funniest thing is just that I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about running a business, like nothing. Like it's so crazy. I swear for the whole year I did it, and then probably 2 years after I walked away from it, I was just worried that like the IRS or somebody was going to come and tell me I broke a law or something because just literally was winging it. I didn't know if I had the proper insurance. I didn't know if I had already filed all the paperwork, that I needed to. I'm just out there charging for services and hoping that nobody comes knocking on my door. But no,
Sure.
that one worked out really well as well. It did well enough.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, man, I think that most people wonder what the hell they're doing, myself included. I'm like, I mean, I think I know how to run a business, but the truth is, I don't. I'm just doing the best what I got.
Yeah,
I'm figuring it out day by day.
yeah. It's sad because I wish more people knew that reality because that imposter syndrome keeps so many people from ever like pursuing something that's on their heart. Like I'm somebody that is big on like listening to my heart and just kind of going where I feel called to go. And I don't worry about feeling qualified or anything like that. And I genuinely wish that most people realize that like you don't have to be qualified to do something. You just have to. You just really have to want it. Because if you don't, then it's too hard. And you won't do it.
Why do you think people struggle so much with going out and trying and starting a business and getting out of like they're miserable in what they're currently doing, but there's either fear or just doesn't hurt enough for them to take that action of getting out of that place? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a combination. I think it's different for different people, but you hit on both of them. It's either fear of failure or this good is the enemy of great reality that just imprisons people for their entire lives. They get something that's just good enough, or they think it's good enough actually, because they just lack the perspective of how good it could be, but they think it's good enough, and that it doesn't hurt. It's not uncomfortable enough for them to make any changes. But I think for most people, it's a fear of failure. I really do, and that's the part that is sad for me because one of my core values is like be eager to learn from failure. Like I have well when you lose everything, right? Like so, I have this idea that most people spend their entire lives trying to accumulate some variety of five things. It's like money, possessions, social clout or, approval of their friends, the approval of their family, and then opportunities for growth or advancement, right? Like most of the things that we work really hard for, that we give our lives to is fits in one of those five categories. And like when I went to prison, I lost all 5 of those things. I lost all my possessions. I lost all my money. I lost the approval of my family. I lost all the people I thought were my friends. And I lost every opportunity that I had worked my entire life to create up until that point. And the craziest thing happened, which is like, it was the first time in my life that I found peace. That I was like happy, that I was like actually happy, like not immediately, but it was, in prison that I found happiness, and I don't know what, it changed me, because I realized suddenly that like my happiness is not attached to those things. Like those things are great. All of them are great. Money, possessions, friends, family, opportunities for growth in them. They're all great, but my happiness is not tied to those things. I was able to have it with none of them. And so for me, I know for sure that's why I can operate with such an apparent, I disregard for the possibility of me. I don't care if I've already lost everything and rebuilt my life, so I know that it's
Right.
fine.
You've
You, you
already
know,
you've already hit the proverbial rock bottom of like, I've lost it all. Like I built
yes,
it from there. I can do it again because I know so much more now than I did then.
100%. And so but I do think it's fear of failure that keeps people from taking the leap, or from taking a chance on themselves, or from just following their heart, or building a business, or whatever it is that's on their heart. They're scared of losing what they've accumulated thus
Mm.
far, and it's just so silly. But I understand, because they don't have the same perspective that I have. Fortunately or unfortunately, depends on who you ask.
Right. So let me ask you this: as a man that's done a lot and been through a lot, what are you fearing today?
I'm honestly on this. I've been really. Well, let me first say that, like, I've been a believer. I believe in God. I've been a believer for um, probably 8 years. I've had like a really good relationship, spiritual sort of practice, anyway, and it has changed my life. However, just recently, I've been getting more and more into. I'm just making a bigger part of my daily routine, and my conversations and everything. It's just top of mind for me, and so right now, when I think about a fear that I have, the only thing I'm really afraid of is uh, arriving at my moment of expiration, and like feeling like I didn't give it everything I had, feeling like I had more left in the tank. Like, I think it's something that actually gives me a lot of peace on a daily basis, because I actually think about this question of, like, if you died today, what's the story that would have been told about you? What's the legacy, for lack of a better word, uh, that you left? And I really, I believe that we write that story on a daily basis, and so, like, I could die tomorrow. And so I'm trying to write the story today. I'm trying to show up as the man I want you to tell a story about today. And so the biggest thing that I really am afraid of is, like, is like letting God down. That's how I think about it. It's like, man, I've been gifted this opportunity. I've been gifted this second chance. I've been gifted all these natural gifts and talents, and, et cetera. And I just don't want to let them go to waste. I feel really grateful for everything that's happened and everything I am. And I really want to put it to use.
Interesting perspective.
You know what I mean? That's the only thing. I'm not scared of, it sounds bad, but I'm not. I've come to terms with death, because that's just about coming to terms with our own mortality. So, like, I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of losing friends, or, public, what image. I'm not afraid of any of that stuff. I've gone through a lot of the stuff that some people are afraid of. But yeah, man, I'm really, it unnerves me to be like when I, like, even today, I'll give you an example. Today I ate like garbage all day. I'm telling you, I was in the coffee shop all day. I got here later than I should have, so I'm kind of like behind, and I didn't have any meals. And so I just ate chocolate croissants and buttered croissants with Fairlife protein shakes all day. That's what I ate for my meals. So far, I have not eaten a single whole food meal today. And that will, when I lay my head down at night, that will bother me. You know what I mean? And it has nothing to do with my physique or anything. It's like, I know better. And I think that when you know better, you should do better. So like, that's just it's tied to my fear.
Totally. Totally.
What do you think about that? Why are you laughing at me?
Well, it's funny because it's been Easter. I had some leftovers today, so I've eaten like ham and mashed potatoes. So it's like, and I know there's like, this is Easter. This ain't normal potatoes.
This ain't everyday food. Yeah.
Half carbs.
Yeah.
Like I just filled my blood pressure up from eating yesterday.
Oh yeah, so much salt.
So it's what's really funny though about that is most people that don't live a healthy lifestyle don't know what the hell we're talking about.
I know.
They don't know what it feels like to be healthy. And so for a person that is active and works out like yourself and eats a good, well-balanced diet, you feel when you have food that you shouldn't eat.
Yeah.
And most people don't know what that feels like. They most of the time associate healthy food with being tired.
Yeah.
When actually, whenever you get in a healthy rhythm, eating something off of plan or not normal actually makes you tired.
Yeah, it makes you sluggish. It definitely does.
Yeah, because that blood pressure increases because your blood becomes thicker. But when you're running with thick blood, you don't know the difference.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing is as I get older, I actually have to be more conscious about what I'm eating because it's like, man, I eat a 14-ounce steak now, and the next day I feel like garbage. I just can't process that much meat
I know.
anymore, right? But it's
But
funny.
we love it.
It's like 17, 18, man, I'd eat a 22-ounce porterhouse like it was going out of style, no problem.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, man, that's 4 more ounces of meat than you could handle. You gonna like that tomorrow? As soon as I hit 30, it's like, it just becomes so much harder. But I wouldn't know what that would. I wouldn't know what that feels like if I didn't eat a well-balanced diet 90% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that.
So
what's something that you're afraid of at this point in life?
Man, I think so. Paula's grandmother died last, I guess, 10 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
We laid her to rest, and I remember being at the funeral for her mom and her. And I'm sitting there going, I'm like, and I'm 35 and like haven't started my life. I'm like, I'm, divorced, work a lot, but recently just got engaged a few days ago. But it's like, when am I going to start this process of like life, air quotes,
yeah, life,
listening, and because I've just always been pushing things off. Like, well, I'll think about the family when I get to where I'm financially feel like I can do the family thing, right? Or like I'm working for tomorrow. Like I'm never like working for today, and I feel like the past 10 years have just flown by.
Yeah.
And I feel like the next 10, if I'm not careful, it's also just going to fly by. And so I'm trying to be very conscious about what I do with my time.
Yeah.
I find myself wanting to sit and do nothing less. And I want to after this podcast, I'm like, this is the last night in Tampa. I'm like, I think I should get out and not sit on the couch. Go for a walk or go do something because I'm gonna be leaving. But it's like, how many days every day do we have that mentality to where it's like, I'll just do it tomorrow. And you look up, boom, like the year's gone, right? So I think for me, it's like trying to take advantage of the small moments, take advantage and notice the laughs, notice the smiles, notice the little things in life that we just let pass by. Because I'm halfway.
Yeah. You ain't halfway. I mean, you still got some time.
35. It was halfway. I'm just being
you got another 50 years.
Wow. I hurt pretty bad at 35. I don't know if I'm going to want to be in there. 50 years. But um, I think it's life passing me by because I'm overworking it. But also I have this fear of like, well, if you take your foot off the gas, then is it all going to fall apart?
Yeah.
You know, um, and it's like, I want to. Love to move to Florida, but it's like, do I buy the house or do I buy a piece of property and then buy something better in the future with the property that I purchased? So it's like I have this battle of like, set yourself up for better later in life or enjoy life now. And I find that to be, I'm having a really hard mental struggle with that. What does that actually look like? And like, what
Yeah.
actually makes me happy? Where I find joy in things. And so I don't work it all away. That's one of my big
Yeah.
things right now. That I'm fearing is like,
Man.
what's going to fill my cup each day in a way that's going to want to make me show up and be better. I think that's probably my biggest fear right now.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like this, it's the unknowing,
Yeah.
right? Like I do know that no matter what, I'll be okay. I'll figure it out. I've come to that conclusion over the last year. I think like no matter what, I'll be okay. You'll figure it
Yeah.
out. Like you can lose everything tomorrow. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So I've gotten past that fear of I think it's more of like the financial fear as I was taught to be like this big uh, hoarder, like save every penny.
Yeah.
And that my dad had taught me. And now I'm like, okay, so like, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
It's like, it's funny because like in 2020, coffee was doing really well. And I was talking to my dad and I was excited and I was sharing numbers. And he was like, son, when's enough enough? And I didn't even skip a beat. I said, I don't know, but I'll let you know when I get there.
Mm.
And I've thought about that day ever since I said it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when is enough enough? When
Yeah.
is it? And that goes for many things, right? Like, when is being in shape good enough in shape? When is, working enough, financial enough, house big enough, car good enough, like life good enough, like like all the things that we value, we perceive value, we put on like when is enough of those things. And I
Yeah.
think for me, enough has always been a mental, not a physical, because like I don't buy expensive shit. Right? I wear the same pair of shoes until I gotta throw them away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Wear the same belt until the metal is completely rubbed off. Right? Like I don't buy shit just because I can buy shit. And so for me, it's like I feel like I'm starting to get really frugal with my time now.
That's good.
Like, how can I best utilize that? But also, too, like, does everything I have to do be productive? Like, does every waking moment have to move something forward?
I mean, I'm not that guy. I share that sentiment with exasperation because I wonder. Well, I wonder, is there a better use of my time? You
Mm,
know what I mean? Like, I have a hard time with like, I'll give you an example, like just sitting around, like watching football every Sunday during football season. Like, I have a hard time doing that because I want to be making a deposit in some area of my life. Now, when you say productive, you might be thinking in a business or professional sense. I think that making deposits in your relationships,
mm,
whether it's your intimate relationship or your friendships, is productive. And so, to answer that I know it was a rhetorical question, but I think about that a lot. And people, I've been asked that by my family members. Why, does everything you do have to? And the answer for me is yes. Everything has to be. Oh, I don't know why I would use any of my time not making deposits in any of the areas of my life that I care about, or the buckets as I refer to them, right? I don't know why I would spend any of my time making deposits. And when I do, I genuinely feel bad about it. Going back to what we were talking, I'm like, man, I wasted that whole 4 hours scrolling on TikTok. You know what I mean? I could have been for real. And some people are like, no, Mark, you deserve a break. You deserve to take a rest time for yourself. No, you know what? I have this thing, man, and I always come back to it. But like, I didn't ask for this life. I didn't fill out an application, and put it in. I didn't wait in line. I didn't ask to be born. I was gifted this opportunity at life, and I hope that my gratitude for the opportunity is apparent in the way that I live, and for me to sit and waste 4 hours a week, on watching a football game, or 4 hours a day watching TikTok. That to me is taking it for granted, So for
Mm.
me, that question, I've been asked that question a lot. Does everything you do have to be productive, or don't you ever take a break? Or it's phrased a million different ways by the people in your life. But now I'm at the point where I'm just like, yes, if I don't feel good about the use of this time, then I'm not gonna use it this way.
Sure. I think that really boils down to defining good because, for myself, it's like I'm doing 4 hours of work, but I'm not enjoying it.
Hmm.
Is that wasting my time?
Yes.
Good is subjective and waste of time. It's like for me, because like my default is like anything I'm doing that, and I'm gonna take that back. Currently, it's not the situation. 6 months ago, if I wasn't working on the business, I felt like I was wasting my time.
Yeah.
And then now, when I find myself doing something for work, but I'm not enjoying it, I also feel like I'm wasting my time
Yeah.
because there's only so many hours in a day, and you should be trying to enjoy as many of those as possible, which also means that you should find work that you enjoy.
Yes.
You find hobbies that you enjoy. And this is no knock to football or something that you enjoy as a leisure time, but it's like whatever you're doing with your leisure time, be sure you're enjoying it, not just wasting it. So
Not just
if
sitting there.
you love scrolling on TikTok, Paula loves it, right? I hear her laughing in the room by herself all the time,
I
right?
know.
She loves to do that. So like, it's not necessarily a waste of time if you're getting enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
Um, but just finding something productive that pushes the needle, I think, in your own happiness and own life is a good way to
Yeah.
put that. And just clearing that up for, because I know some people that like, man, would love to watch football. I'm like, I don't want to like
Oh yeah.
say somebody's like not being productive because like that's their favorite part of the weekend. Just like the person who
Yeah.
plays golf, it's the same amount of time, just two different activities, right?
That's a great distinction because genuinely the reason that pops into my head is because I could care less about sports, but
Right.
sometimes I catch myself being tempted to watch the game for what, like I haven't watched a game all season. I don't know, I don't even know who's on the field, and
Because
I'm
so
just
and so
watching.
is doing it or this, that, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I don't watch football either, but if like my buddy's like, "Hey, we're gonna have people over," I'm like, oh, "I'm not going to watch football. I'm going to hang out with my friends." Like
I'm going to hang out with my friends. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like deposit in a different way. They want to watch the game. If you want to come
Yeah.
watch, great.
I want to hang out with
Oh,
you.
you want to hang
Yeah,
out with me? Cool.
yeah, yeah. That's good, man. It is. I like what you said about like just taking notice of the little things. It's so cliche to say that, but like I really think like life is all about the little things. Like especially once you make any amount of money and you reach a point where you can pay your bills and you're not worried about it. Then you start to look around like what's next, or the question that your father asked you, when is enough? And um, man, it's cool. I'm really blessed to have some of the life experiences that I had, but when you're in a really low spot like solitary confinement in prison, you have to figure out like things that will keep you literally sane, and you end up. I remember a ladybug came into my cell one time, and it was just like in all the gray, it was red, and for whatever reason, it just seemed like most amazing thing in the world to me, and so take, and then I would walk outside, and it'd be a nice day, just a normal nice day, but it would be a nice day, and I'd be like, man, thank you, man. I'd stop and I'd like look at the leaves and look at the grass and be like, man, this is amazing. It's, you just you have to like it. And it made me, that's when this is a period when I was talking about when I found peace. Like, it was amazing. And it's, if I could find peace via just taking notice of the little things and like really feeling the gratitude for those things and just wondering at how, just the likelihood of all of this coming together the way that it did. It's amazing. That's, and you can have that even if you're on top of the world financially, or you can have it if you're on the bottom of the world financially. That's the coolest thing about it. So yeah, I wish you luck on that, man. It's a worthwhile venture.
I think one of the things I'm starting to really take notice is appreciation for a lot of
What do you
stuff.
mean?
Well, like, just like you talked about, like, the leaves and this and that and whatever, but it's like the little, like, noticing the little things. Like, me and Paula took some pictures Easter morning, and just out here beside these like trees blowing in the wind, and like how nice it felt, and like we weren't doing anything, but just like appreciate the opportunity to be anywhere. Or like, for example, move to St. Louis, and it's like oftentimes we put happiness on certain places, adventures, vacations, but like whenever you actually appreciate the season in which you're in, it feels a lot different. I'll give you a great example. If you live in Florida, you don't use or probably have a fireplace, right? In St. Louis, you probably do. So our house, I would make a fire all winter, like 4 or 5 days a week. Like, why do you do that? I'm like, because I can here. Not because I enjoy going out and getting the wood and all the work it takes to do it, but at this, and the 15 minutes, because I never would get a starter log because I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, it's cheating.
I'm going to like build this and then stack, like, but just the appreciation of like finding the little things in your space and in your environment, making the most of them. Yeah. So whenever you have a fireplace, it's like using it. Going to a big body of water, I would travel to a place with a big body of water and like getting in that water. Like, it's not convenient.
No.
But doing that is a big deal to me because I'm passing up that opportunity and I appreciate the ability to do this. So when I go to California in December, yeah, it's freaking cold water, right? But still going and doing it because it's like that moment I can't get back. So it's
I'm not. You lost me there, man. That Pacific is cold.
But it's like, it was like sub 7 degrees in St. Louis. And I was like, I'm going to go for a walk and get out in this because I want to experience what it's like to be in -7. So like I went on a 30-minute walk outside. Or it's like just to experience the moments that we're given and not viewing things as positive or negative, but just as they are.
Yeah. I really like that.
And you say it's hot, you're going to be miserable. If you're saying, man, I'm so glad it's not -50, this 110, I'll take it. But then when it's -50, be like, how cool is this experience? I want to experience it. Thank God it's not 110.
Yeah.
And so it's like taking the little moments, the little things, because like you can take the smallest house with the most beat up car and still have an amazing opportunity in life because we're taking appreciation of all the little things and not getting distracted by oftentimes what money can buy. And so you'll find, I think, that there's periods of life that people will go through. And let's say somebody with money, they often, once you accumulate all the money, you start doing things that doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, that's ironic, isn't it? I never thought about that before.
You go through phases, right? So you have like people that are rich, and I would say rich would be like let's say you make like 250 to 500 a year, right? You're going to buy all the things. You're going to max out all your spending limits. And then once you make it a million a year, you stop spending all the money because you realize that it doesn't bring you any type of happiness. And
Yeah.
so now you just want to buy back as much of your time as possible. And you want to go on the hikes and you want to go on the adventures and the Mustogies and like all the things that have nothing to do with money.
Hang
And
on
so,
one second.
yeah.
Sorry. Thank you. Life of a business owner, Mike. There we go.
And so you start doing all the things that you enjoying your time with, right? Family or basic travel or like camping or like you going on walks or like riding a bike, like all the things that don't require anybody, or you just want to hang out with people, or you spend your money inviting people to come join you on things versus worrying about what it costs, but like who am I with? That's all I care about is who I'm with.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's like when you're on the come up, right? It's like, who are you with? And it's usually when we get to this point of like, once we start to make this, low six figures to, mid six figures, where it's like we stop doing the things with people,
Yeah.
start doing the things for ourselves, which is like really where I find this like unhappiness level. And then it's like, once you break that threshold or you get into that mindset to where it's like, it's all about the people and experiences. And that's why you see somebody driving the Toyota Corolla blasting music, having a blast.
Yeah.
And you see this super wealthy guy driving a Trailblazer who also could be driving a Rolls Royce doing the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
the
like
people in the middle are often the
you
most
get lost in
miserable.
this sauce, right? You get lost in, you get caught up in it because like I'm leaving this old life behind, trying to get to this new life. You realize you have the same life, you have the same mentality. You get distracted. And
Yeah.
I think with work, I've often gotten distracted and I'm trying to make the best I think of every day possible, but also fighting the mental battle of becoming enough by somebody else's standards.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that I try to disregard entirely all the time. Like I'm trying for real. I mean, I've gotten canceled multiple times or at least, attempts, and it just hardens you. You know what I mean? If it doesn't fold you anyway, like I could easily see how, just the barrage being persecuted in public like that it does. It just completely destroys people. And then they live under a rock for the rest of their lives. But if it doesn't, though,
Right.
it just hardens you to that. And then you say, which is great. But about what you're saying, though, I have this thing that could be really useful. It's really useful to me anyway, in the perpetual striving for like that. Like what we're talking about is finding happiness, right? Or peace or whatever you want to call it. I call it peace often. But what I mean is what most people think of as happiness. And for me, I think there's a recipe for me anyway. For me, the recipe is three things. One is being present, being here, being I say be where your feet are, but being present, being grateful, like actually, like I think the internet, social media has ruined like gratitude because these people will be like, oh, just write down three things I'm grateful for at the beginning of every day. I think when for a gratitude practice to actually work, and there is a work and doesn't work. There really is. You can tell by the outcome. But for it to actually work, you have to muster the feeling of gratitude. Like for me, it's almost like as intense as like sincere prayer, because with the energy that you give to it. But anyway, so being present, being grateful, and always doing your best in the moment, like Like if you're doing those three things, I think that's the recipe for peace on a moment to moment basis. Because when you're here, when you're present, you're not worried about where you could be. And that's something that, sort of it keeps us from that peace, right? And then the gratitude is about when you're feeling gratitude, you can't possibly be thinking about what, like if I'm like, man, I'm so grateful I have my own, coffee shop that I get to sit in and what I'm not thinking simultaneously about the coffee shop I could have or the other coffee shop down the street. I'm thinking about my coffee shop. So it, there's that one. And then just always showing up and doing your best. I think that this one is the most underrated and probably the one that people wouldn't think about the most because I don't know if it's a cultural thing right now or whatever, but like you feel good about yourself when you give good effort, when you try, when you do everything you can as good as you can. Now, over a long enough time horizon, if you could do those three things consistently, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to produce an outcome, circumstances in your life that are favorable as well. But that's like, there's not even to be said about that. But on a moment to moment basis, I think that will really help people. It helps me anyway, just be happy and excited about the process because we have this preoccupation with outcomes in our society. Like we want to be happy. We want to be wealthy. We want to have the marriage and the boom, so on and so forth, the family and everything, the career. But what I remind myself of every day is you can't separate the process from the outcome. You can't. And so if you people say you gotta learn to love the process. I don't know if that's true, but if you love the outcome, you just have to acknowledge and accept that you cannot separate the process from the outcome. And so if you love the outcome enough, then you're willing to commit to the process. Like, but a lot of the unhappiness or the discontent, it comes from wanting the outcome, but trying to reject the process that gets you there. And so along the way in the process, if you're just present, grateful, and you do the best you can, I think that you find peace through the process. And then there's this really crazy thing that happens, which is very similar to what you were just saying about like when you're rich, you stop spending more money. I think oftentimes when you, maybe not the peace one as far as an outcome, but like the money and the family and all that stuff. If you commit to the process of producing those outcomes, a really flourishing, a healthy marriage, a nice family and a successful career and the house and all the things, by the time you get there, the process transforms you into a person that is not outcome focused. You're just like, you kind of, you just take it for what it is by the time you get there. It's a really weird transition, but yeah, that recipe for me helps me a ton. I try to just be where I am right now. I try to be grateful for, the circumstances that I'm in and, for everything that I can be. And then I just do my best at everything that I do. Like when I make coffees, I make, I don't know, 200 coffees a day. Okay. Every single one of them, I'm like, oh, this is about to be the best coffee I ever made. Every single one. I just do one at a time. Like this stuff is constantly in my head, what I'm talking about right now. Like, hey man, all you could do is have the conversation with this customer the best you can right now. And then as soon as I'm done talking to them, I'm steaming that milk. This is going to be the best milk I ever steamed. And then I'm pouring the latte. I want this to be they got to take a picture of this it's just literally on a second by second basis, I think about this stuff and it helps me so much. It helps me. I don't know. I don't know why, but it's a recipe that I just recently figured out that has really been helping me a lot.
So I think the few things that you said there are really big. So one thing I've struggled with in the past is being present. I'm always focused on the future. One of my strengths is being futuristic. The downside of that is lack of presence. So I always think like, well, we can do this and this and this and this, like, which really sets me up for success in the future, but doesn't mean I'm going to be successful today.
Yeah.
It means that I'm letting a lot of moments pass by, um, which is where gratitude I think really comes in, because it really like seats the idea of being present, because you can't be grateful without being present.
Yeah.
And it also too makes you go back a little bit also, which is like the opposite of future, right?
Mhm.
Because when you're grateful, you have to be grateful for not just the good things but all the bad.
Mhm.
And so it's like, I don't know your story, and through, but I would have to assume that you're grateful for all the trials and tribulations you've gone through with prison and whatnot to make you who you are today, to make you grateful for the little things that you have today, the ladybug, right? Things like
Mhm.
that, where it sets you up for, more things. So, like, I'm grateful for the failures I've had.
Mhm.
I'm grateful for the divorce, the problems in business, the backstabbing here, or the all like I'm got to a point in my life where I'm grateful all those things happened, because without those I wouldn't be who I am today and wouldn't be where I'm at today. It's really hard to say you're thankful for the worst things that ever happened to you.
Yeah.
But when you can get there, you're gonna find a new piece of like gratitude.
A hundred
Because I
percent.
think the first thing you do is you have to forgive the situation, the person, yourself, society, whatever happened. You got to forgive it, not just like yourself, but the the other person as well. And then you have to be grateful that they did it,
Mhm.
and that's really really hard to do. Um, but it allows you to set you up in a place to where like nothing else can actually bother you once that happens.
Yeah.
They truly bother you. Because I feel like I'm in a place in my life now to where like I can handle whatever's thrown at me. I there's a saying that I heard that I've repeated this many times. It's really easy to build $1 million business. It just takes 10 years to become the man it takes to build $1 million business.
Yeah.
All right. So you have to go through all the trials and tribulations, all the shit to get to
Yeah.
the other side. Because it nothing that we I think achieve in life, like peace, I don't think is easy to do. There's
Yeah.
too many outside things that can pull us out of that, whether it be society and devil, like however you want to describe it. Things are constantly pulling at your happiness. But I
Mhm.
love the fact that you put those in, because I think when it comes to the hard work play, is that you're just trying to do your best.
Mhm.
Just literally just give it your all in whatever your task is you're doing. Like if you're a stay-at-home dad, like dude, give it your all,
Give
which
it
is
your all.
going to make you grateful for the opportunity to see your kids grow up, and like being present in the moment. So I think that recipe is, I think that's a fantastic recipe, dude. And I hope
Yeah.
people are taking that, listening, like write that down, be present, be grateful, and give it your all. I know that seems so stupid and so little, but if you're listening and that makes you feel some type of way, then this message is for you.
100%. And people reject things because they're simple. That's the silliest reason to reject a process or an equation or a recipe. That's the silliest thing ever. Like some of the, so I think when, it, just like there's like this, there's this weird thing where, okay, when you're poor, you can have fun and be happy with next to nothing, and then somehow you end up miserable when you start to make more money, and then you have to cross over the hump. I think that there's like this a similar trajectory with experience,
Mhm.
and we have to, like, when we're kids, like everything is just so simple. And then, we become adults and we kind of get into the world and we overcomplicate the heck out of things. Like, I mean, out of everything, out of relationships, out of our career, out of education, we overcomplicate it so much. And then with more experience, I don't want to say with age, but with more experience and maturity, then we start to re-embrace the simple way of doing things. And that, like you were saying, that is a very simple process. It may seem recipe. It may seem rudimentary, but it is powerful. It's one of those simple but very powerful things. Yeah.
Man, I'm going to change topics for a second. Dude, what is the number one thing that a customer has taught you?
So, huh. What number one thing that a customer has taught me? I would, man, I'm trying to think of, I mean, there's silly things that like I just didn't know. Like for real, like I can think of a lot of things. Like a guy that came in, my Wi-Fi kept crashing several times when we first opened, and like you're in a coffee shop, the Wi-Fi can't go down, especially people are in here on Zoom calls and they're in work meetings, and all of a sudden the internet's down. It's the worst. So I had a guy that like taught me about like getting a better router and setting up some like security walls and all kinds of stuff. I had a guy teach me, as silly as this sounds, that I had to stir when you make an iced latte, you put your flavor in there, you put your milk in there, and then you put the espresso in, and then you have to stir it and then put ice in so that the espresso is like evenly distributed. I wasn't doing that. I was just, putting the ice in, put the espresso in, and then you got like milk and flavor on the bottom. You got espresso on top. That make any sense? This is like how little I knew about coffee before I opened. But I'm trying to think in more of like a philosophical sense. I've learned a lot, because especially going through some public attacks and doing all the community focused stuff that we do, and man, that's a great question. I would say, I mean, just generally speaking, I would say that the thing that I've learned from customers is that you don't have to be for everyone, like there's been like people are very surprised at first when they see that like I'm willing to like participate in conversations online about like hot button issues, or when I'm willing to take a stance on whatever, on the next presidential election, or on the war in Ukraine, or on the, I mean, I really don't care about some of those things, but just, you get my point. When I'm willing to even take part in it, they're shocked. Like, oh, aren't you worried about having that conversation? You're too worried about how it'll affect your business. And, being in business and having customers that praise me for it and having customers that hate me for it, has taught me that you don't have to be for everyone. There's plenty of customers out there for everybody to win. There's plenty of other coffee shops here in St. Louis. There's plenty of other coffee companies that you can buy your coffee from online. If you don't like the way that I do things, or if you don't like me personally, or if you like somebody else more, then cool, go do business with them. Like, I am absolutely competitive. I absolutely want to win. I absolutely think that what we're doing is good and right. And I think that I'm a good person and I care about people a lot, and I would really love and appreciate the support. But if you don't want to, though, I'm not going to, I refuse to give up who I am. And also forfeit my role as an adult that lives in this. I live in this country. I ought to have something to say about who's getting elected. I ought to have something to say about how we're using tax dollars. I ought, like that. This is one of the things that drives me crazy. Like, you're an adult and you live here and you don't even want to talk about it. What do you mean you don't want to talk about it? We gotta look around. Like, we got to talk about it. There's a problem. It needs addressing. Whatever it is. And so, I don't know. That was the biggest lesson I've learned from my customers. Is like, you don't have to be for everyone. I think that I really value I value the idea of a community, like of a village. I use that term around here a lot, and how like they used to say when I was a kid, it takes a village to raise a child. But I just think it takes a village. Period. It just takes a village when you have a community or a group of people who agree to just do life together, which is it's kind of like, we all had to make that agreement, whether we like it or not. We're doing life together, and so I do think that it's not only an honor, but it's an obligation we have to show up and to be involved and to participate in the conversation that is going to perpetually revolve around the question: how can we make this the best place to live for all of us? That's it. Like, that's the question. And so all the conversations that I take part in, they're because I think about that. And I'm genuinely interested in figuring out the answer. How do we make this, whether it's St. Louis, whether it's the United States of America or the earth, how do we make this the best place to live for all of us? And I get in conversations like that, and people freaking hate me for it. It's crazy. Like, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, that's definitely the biggest lesson that I've learned is you don't have to be for everyone. I remember the first time we went through cancel culture, thing, and there was like a Reddit thread that went crazy. It had like 1,000 comments on it, and a Twitter post that had like 1,000 comments, and an Instagram post that had like 1,000 comments, and it seemed like everybody's story that I looked at on Instagram had my post, had a post about me on it. And that's not the reality. Sometimes perception, your perception can be skewed, but it seemed like that. And I remember this is my first time getting attacked on the internet with something to lose. Okay. Like, I've been attacked on the internet before, but this is the first time that I invested all of my own money into a business that was now being taken down. And I'm like, in my head, I know it's unreasonable now, but in my head, I was thinking, man, this is it. It's over. Like, I just invested every dollar I have into this damn business, and these people, because they don't like something that I said, or because I don't believe the same thing they believe, are gonna like ruin my business. And I thought to myself in that moment, it's crazy. I was at dinner. I remember where I was. I was at dinner with my parents, and I thought, do I apologize? Do I take the stuff down? Do I delete the post? Delete the comment? Do I what do I? And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And this is when I had this, you don't have to be for everyone moment. This is when I had this, I actually, what I really felt in that moment was that this is a test of my conviction. And am I going to like bow down to the mob to save my business money? Or am I going to stand on, values and things that are actually important to me, in the face of losing that stuff? And so I made the conscious decision in that moment. This is good for anybody that gets put in this situation. But I said, no, whatever it costs, I'm going to stand on what I've said. And you're calling me transphobic. You're calling me homophobic. I know that I don't hate trans people. I know that I don't hate homosexual. I'm not going to apologize. You don't know me. I know that I don't hate anybody. So I stood on truth, and that was in my mind what I was standing on. I stood on truth, and I stood on what I thought was right, and I said, screw it, whatever it costs. The next 3 days in a row, record sales days online. We're selling tons of coffee, right? So in that, for me, like I've mentioned already, I'm a believer, right? But even if I wasn't, like, you could say karma or the universe if you're not a believer, right? But like, that to me was confirmation. I had that little internal dialogue. Are you going to apologize, take it down? Are you going to, back? No, I'm going to stand up for truth. I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. And then the next couple of days, and in that moment, everything was tanking. We had a terrible day in business. The indicators was that this is going to be very negative for me. And I stood on it anyway. The next couple of days better. That to me was confirmation that that's the important thing to do. And so now I have this, like, now I'm very convicted. I don't care what you think. I don't care. I don't need to be for everyone. So yeah, that's
I think
definitely
it's
the
really
big thing.
important that like everybody has a right to their voice.
100%.
And I think this is like a bipartisan argument, is that everybody has a right to their voice. Like you have
Hmm.
the rights to believe what you want to believe. I have the rights to believe what I want to believe. You have the rights to speak those. I have the rights to speak those. Anytime one side of any belief tries to make the other one's um, quieted, invalid, um, feel bad because you have a belief, it's like we're no longer in a democracy.
Hmm.
We're no longer like you have the. I could disagree with what you're saying and still believe you have the right to say it.
Hmm.
Right now, the difference is now are you one trying to dictate how I live my life? Right.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do behind closed doors. Just like I don't want you to care about what I do behind closed doors. Right? It's
Yeah.
your life to live and my life to live, and I want you to have that freedom to say it. I want you to believe it because
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to do that. And I think it gets murky when, well, your beliefs don't align with mine, so you shouldn't say yours. It's like, well, that's
You know,
not how that works because I'm giving you the right to say yours.
100%. And that's the well, now we're kind of on a different topic, but that's the irony of that whole situation. Is like, you guys don't even know me. Like, I'm the first person that would go to bat for your right to think and feel and believe whatever you think and feel. I've been to prison. I know what it's like to lose your freedom. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not like some conspiracy theory in my head, like, you're not, it's not. I know what it's like. And so I understand perhaps better than most that for me to advocate for you to lose your rights is for me to advocate for me to lose my rights. I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. So that's the irony in the whole thing.
Mhm.
And the other really ironic thing is that, these people, oftentimes the people I've seen it from both sides, but the people who attack me, these are the same people who are talking about tolerance and inclusion and all this stuff. And it's like, you're only tolerant and inclusive as long as somebody agrees with you. That's not one of the things I talk about often here in the coffee shop is like, I'm trying to build an environment that's actually tolerant, that's actually inclusive. You can, that's I mean, that's what I think America ought to be about, but it's definitely what Omen Coffee Co. is about, and that's, I guess, what I get to be concerned with most immediately is building an environment that's actually tolerant, that's actually inclusive. Does that mean that you just get to come up in here and think, feel, and believe, wear your values on your sleeve and avoid getting your beliefs challenged? No, I think that we ought to challenge each other, and if you can't explain why you feel the way you feel or why that makes sense, and if your position doesn't hold any water, we ought to be adults about this and be like, you know what, maybe you're right. Like, I want to talk about it. I think we ought to talk. I think we have to. This goes back to that obligation. And so, yes, think, feel, believe anything that you want, and that's great, but let's talk about it, because it's not healthy for anybody, for you or for me or for us, for you to have some convictions that don't withstand scrutiny. You know what I mean? Like that. That's what I see a lot in society right now, and it's so. Yes, the irony is, I am the first person I would go to war for your opportunity to think, feel, and believe whatever you do. But at the same time, when I get you in private in, the coffee shop, and I sit down and say, man, I don't know, it just really doesn't make any sense to me because can you help me understand? And you get mad at me for challenging your position. That's not right. I don't think that that's right, because I wouldn't get mad if you challenged my position, especially if you got me. I'm open to changing my mind.
Yeah, you just got to come with an
You
argument.
just gotta come with it. That's
It's
right.
not you yelling. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's for anything of any sorts with anybody.
anything, any sort, anybody. If you come and you sell me on it, man, I'm sold. And then I'll sign up to sell it with you. That's how I am. Everything that I believe strongly, and I don't come to my beliefs easily. I don't arrive at these conclusions swiftly. Yeah, I need to be convinced, and then I go out and self-validate, and then I'll go do and then if I believe it and I believe it's strong, I'll tell everybody. I'll tell everybody because I believe it and I believe it strongly, and I'm trying to help the world. I'm trying to contribute to the world in a positive way. And if I think I figured something out, then I'm going to share it with as many people as I can so that you don't have to waste time figuring that out. Hey, I figured this out. Go test it. Your life will probably be better because of it if you go use this information. I don't know. That's just how I think, man.
Dude, man, what do you want people to take away from you?
Man, I've been actually thinking about this lately, and
Okay.
yeah, I really have. I I know, and you're not. Me and you have had the religion conversation, dude, I'm so grateful that you've come to men's group, you come, the Bible study and checked it out, especially because the last we talked anyway, you're kind of an agnostic, and so anyway, I love that we've had that, but I one of the things that I've always had in my mind about religion, which I hate that word. I don't really like the idea of it, but I have been a believer in God for a long time. But one of the things that really drew me back to God in it was, and quite frankly, the reason why why it took me so long to embrace a religion, is because every so often you meet a person that through their presence and there's their being, just their energy, you're like, man, there's something different about that person, and you just don't know what it is. You can't put your finger on it, but man, that's just such a good dude right there, or women, or and in a I would say for a long time, almost every single one of those people that I've met, they were devoutly devoted to some sort of spiritual practice, and I have to be fair. At least one of them was a Muslim, but a lot of them were Christians. But at least one, my friend Taha, was a Muslim, and so that was one of the reasons why I was like, man, you know what? These people all had figured something out, and they all agree on the major point, which is that God is real, but they disagree on the details, and that's, a discussion, but they agree that God is real. And so I think, when I think lately, what I've been thinking is I hope to someday be one of those people that's like, man, they meet, and just, man, what is it about that guy, and those people inspired me to want to know God. I'm gonna be honest. Those people inspired me to be like, my friend Maggie is the one that always comes to the top of my mind. Oh, I'm sorry. My friend Maggie's the one that always comes to the top of my mind. She's a Catholic, but for the longest time, she's one of my best friends in the world. Like, she'll probably be in my wedding. I know that's weird, but I've already thought about it. She's got to be there, And so, for probably 2 years, though, I didn't even know she was religious at all. She's one of the most religious people I've ever met. I didn't even know because she never talked about it, but you just know when meet her. You're like, man, something's different. This woman is so light, She's just, she's just so full of life and good energy, and yeah. So that's when I think, what do I want people to take away? I've told a lot of stories. I've been on a lot of podcasts. I've shared a lot of lessons that I've learned. I've tried to give everything that I've received as much as I can, and I'll continue to do so. But when I think about what I want people to take away, I want them to, like, to want that, that lightness. I hope to be one of those people someday that gets people thinking like, man, is there, I don't know, there's something different about that guy, man. And I hope to inspire people to explore different avenues of finding whatever that is.
Well, you made mention of like this certain people that you're just like, there's just something about them. I can relate to that. There's a few people I've crossed in my life, and I'm like, man, I want to have that energy, that light, where it's like, it's just something about when you talk to them, and then your presence, you just like, and everything is just so good in this moment. I just can't explain.
And it could be anywhere. You're like anywhere. You like see him at a coffee shop, or you see him at the airport, or
Yeah,
whatever.
and
And
like
it's like,
you're
what?
like this aura around them, like you step into it and it just feels different.
Yeah.
So it's funny you say that, because I think for a long time my insecurities played this role in me, and I was like, and I would get real emotional, and I was like, I want my tombstone to say the nicest guy I knew.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
And I was like, why do I want that?
Yeah.
Is it because I grew up and like that wasn't the case, right? Like the people around me, or maybe I felt that I wasn't, or it's always just had this energy that like I want everybody to think that I was just the nicest guy in the world, the best guy ever.
Mm-hmm.
And which has come with a lot of its own issues, because it allows people to walk on me and me not stand firm in my own beliefs, or not stand firm in like my own um, what's best for Mike, but
Yeah.
always what was best for other people. So it's had its own issues with it. But that was something I always wanted too, was like I wanted to be known as like the nicest guy I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can still be nice and hold your ground, because that just means
100%.
that person is not being nice. But yeah, man, to give out that light and that energy, I've always found like I've never been a super personable person. So I'm like, something I've also been trying to like work on is like, hey man, like have deep conversation. Just don't ask like how's work, like
Yeah.
really feed the energy of other people instead of always draining it. I feel like that's something a lot of people probably also struggle with too, is like how can I give versus just always take?
Yeah.
Because we know those people you talk to, like I don't want to talk to them because like it's just heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy because they drain you, right?
Yeah.
But you also have those friends who are like, man, I enjoy talking to them. I want to call them because I need to be enlightened.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I want to be somebody that can call them. Like I want to think that somebody thinks to call me, they're calling me because I'm gonna put a light on their face. I'm gonna put a smile on their face. Like,
Yeah.
and so no, I totally get that, man. And that says a lot, I think who you are, and I think more truthfully, probably who you've become over the years of like just wanting to be that light, man.
I'm trying, man. I'm gonna be honest. I try very hard, and in my faith, there's a very, very widespread sort of philosophy of that we get saved through faith alone. And I'm a very big I struggle a lot with that, and I'm a very big faith plus works
Mm.
person. Like I'm like, hey, listen, man, I'm sorry, but you gotta try. And a lot of Christians will disagree with me on that. That's fine, but that's how I live anyway, as if it matters, as if I do need to try. Because I have a hard time accepting that, but I do, man. I try very hard, and it's cool because just this past week, and this is just a silly one, but just this past week, man, little wins. You got to take the time to celebrate the little wins. That's another thing too. Going back to what you said, your fear was. This is something that's helped me a lot in the past year. I've adopted this habit of when I have a little win, I have a ritual. And it's like a trigger. Like, okay, like when I was smoking cigars, it would be like if I had a win, I would take the time to smoke this specific cigar, and I could only smoke this cigar when I had a win. And like just that, like having them attached and like having this chain reaction, man, it really was cool for me, because I'm the type of person, I never celebrate any wins, and I
Mm,
never slow down. I just keep going, going, going. And
same.
then you can kind of get burnt out that way, and you feel like you're not making any progress. But really, if you have a ritual like that, it helps. But anyway, just recently I had a guy come in, this big burly guy, the diesel mechanic, big beard, It comes in covered in grease every day. Just wouldn't I didn't expect it at all. He comes in every afternoon, and he told me, "Hey man, you know, man, it's the weirdest thing, but ever since I started coming here, dude, I've been thinking about going back to church again." Like, I'm like, no way, I told him, "Hey, dude, I'm really grateful you told me that, but like, what do you mean?" I kind of dug in with him, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I was raised Christian, and it's shoved down my throat, and I haven't been to church in the next 20 years, and but man, I don't know, man, I don't know what it is." And I'm like, but this is why I said I've been thinking about this lately, because in my head I was like, man, this is the first instance in my life that I think that I actually I was that person. I showed up in a way that inspired this guy to wonder, man, what's different about this guy? And I talk about God and Bible study and all this stuff a lot in the coffee shop. So like, I did it once, and it was just this past week, and I'm like, man, that's a major win. I got a lot more to do, but that's a major win for me.
That's awesome, man. Well, dude, man, I appreciate you coming on, man. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
And dude, where can people find you?
Oh, yeah. Instagram, Mark Anthony Joe, MARK, and then Anthony Joe, Joe. I also have a podcast called the Good Omen Podcast. I have full length interviews like this, but sometimes it's just me talking, talking junk. But yeah, dude, I'm super grateful that you had me on too. And just one last thing I want to say is just you every time that I've had an opportunity to sit down with you and talk to you, you are a life-giving person. So no, for real. I don't know the old Mike. I only know Mike from 4 months ago or 3 months. I don't know. But you volunteered time to help me. You've, invited me on the show. I know Paula a lot better than I know you, and she's, amazing. And so, but I also know, she's Paula, and so you must be patient, and you must be. But dude, no, you're a life-giving person, and so if you're not there yet, you're on your way, and I just think it's worth acknowledging
I appreciate that, brother.
that. Yeah.
My biggest takeaway podcast